The Mona Lisa. Over 6 million people see this painting at the Louvre each year. Of course, getting a picture of it while covered in bulletproof glass and surrounded by hundreds of people is nearly impossible. What if I told you this painting is famous not because Da Vinci painted it, or because of that smile she has? What if I told you it has to do with one of the most fascinating art heists the world has ever seen, but few people have ever heard about? The year was 1911, and it was really hot and humid in Paris, which you would probably expect for Monday, August 21st. The night before, 3 men had snuck into the Louvre and hidden overnight in a narrow storeroom. These 3 men were Vincenzo Peruggia and his brothers, Lancelotti and Michele, all 3 Italian and all 3 on a rescue mission, or so they thought. Early in the morning, they put on white workman's smocks and headed to the Salon Carré. I know what you are already thinking. Wait, I thought the Mona Lisa was in its own gallery, surrounded by hordes of tourists. Nope, not at all. In fact, the Mona Lisa was in a huge gallery, along with many other pieces. That morning, the 3 brothers ripped the painting off the wall, took off the glass shadow box and frame, then Peruggia hid it under his clothes. Next thing you know, they snuck down a hidden stairwell and out a side entrance into the streets of Paris. In no time at all, the Mona Lisa was gone. You would think alarms would go off, guards would be at the ready, police called immediately. But you would be wrong. It took over 26 hours before anyone ever noticed she was missing. Keep in mind, this is 1911, and what was the world's largest building, and security was pretty weak with little more than 150 guards. Stuff often went missing, and a lot of works got damaged. At the time, the Mona Lisa was far from the most visited painting in the Louvre. Da Vinci painted it in 1507, and it took until 1860 for an art critic to finally decide it was a fine example of Renaissance art. Even then, it still wasn't a popular painting. But even though it wasn't in its own gallery, it wasn't off the museum's radar. 1 year prior in 1910, the museum was mailed a letter from Vienna threatening the Mona Lisa. Museum officials hired a professional to put about a dozen famous paintings under glass, including the Mona Lisa. The man who did the work was Vincenzo Peruggia, who happened to grow up in a village north of Milan, Italy. Name sound familiar? Stealing the Mona Lisa made sense for Peruggia. Most paintings that were stolen often went into a secret pipeline where you might barter for drugs, weapons, or other items. And trust me, Peruggia definitely had the necessary criminal connections. But by late Tuesday after the robbery was discovered, there was a media explosion. Not just in Paris, but in newspapers around the world. Crowds flooded at police headquarters. Not so much because they loved the Mona Lisa, but a theft from the Louvre, which was run by the French government, gave newspapers the chance to poke fun at them, and they took it. At this point, the Mona Lisa was way too hot to sell or trade. Peruggia didn't just steal an Italian painting, he took the Mona Lisa, which had now become the world's most famous painting. Peruggia had hidden the painting in a false bottom of a wooden trunk in his room. The following November, police questioned him, asking why was he late to work that Monday morning. Peruggia simply said he was drunk the night before and slept in. Police bought the lie, and guess who they arrested instead? Pablo Picasso. No worries, he was quickly released soon after.
Oops.
In December 1913, 28 months later, Peruggia left his boarding house with his trunk and took a train to Florence, Italy. He tried to sell the painting to an art dealer, but the dealer quickly called the police. Peruggia pled guilty and served only 8 months in prison. Now an international celebrity, the Mona Lisa returned to the Louvre following exhibitions around Italy. Within the first 2 days, over 100,000 people came to see it. That brings us back to today, where millions now flock to see this painting. A lot of people now question if this painting is really that good. Maybe. Or is a painting only great when enough people collectively believe it is? As for the Mona Lisa, those eyes are definitely doing something, And that smoky sfumato technique Da Vinci used to paint them was definitely revolutionary. But I say it's not his best work. In fact, if you go to see the Mona Lisa, be sure to step just outside the gallery where several other Da Vinci pieces are hanging, with no one around them, of course. Until next time, be outrageous.